We're delighted he's here with us today. Ernest is a certified career coach, published author, trainer, and project management professional. Heard that? I heard a lot of that this morning. He believes that your career search is one of the most important things you'll ever do, but it's also the most overlooked. You can trust him to motivate, encourage, and hold you accountable while helping you maximize your career potential and earning power. He meets with clients currently in career search as well as those that are preparing for one. He believes it's an undeniable fact you can't separate your professional life from your personal life. He coaches the entire person, not just your career. To be successful in your professional life, you must be strong and healthy in your personal life as well. He coaches clients in transforming their career and their life overall. By the time you finish working with Ernest, and you put his program to work for you, you'll gain the results you're looking for. Ernest's background includes education at Bowie State University and the University of Maryland, with accomplishments in project management and his MBA also from the University of Maryland. Please join me in welcoming Ernest.
I gotta say, whenever I hear my bio being read, sometimes I'm like, who are they talking about? My 3 words.
Yes.
Handsome and more handsome.
Modest.
I figure if I don't say it, no one else may say it. So I want to love myself, right? And that's the way we should all do, right? So I heard a lot in your introduction. And a little bit more about me. I am a certified career coach, and I focus on IT project management. So that does not mean that I don't help other populations. It just means that I have a vast amount of experience in the IT field and as a project manager. So that's pretty much the population that I work with. So a little insight on today's topic, and I probably shouldn't go this far into it, but the topic that we're going to talk about today wasn't the one that I had planned for originally, but this is the one that I give all the time anyway, because this is the one that I'm passionate about. As you heard in the intro, that I believe that you're more than just your job. Does anyone believe that? You bring your life into your career. As a career coach, I get so many people that come to me that says, first thing they say, obviously, is, I want a job, right? But then there is, I have bills, I'm having issues in my marriage, my kids. We all have that, that's life. So when you come to me, it's not only about your career, it's about your life as well. Especially those that have been out of work for some time. So that's why we're going to talk about jumpstarting your career. You know, 3 weeks ago, I had to go pick up my daughters from school. My car would not start, and I was already running late. I live in Bowie. Anyone familiar with Bowie? So I'm outside of the Capitol Beltway. Anyone who's driven on the Capitol Beltway knows how painstaking it can be to travel. So I was already running late and my car would not start. So what's the first thing that happens to you? You get frazzled, right? You start to panic, stress. You get all these emotions going on, anxiety. It's the same thing with your career. Now, I don't know where you guys are in your career. That part we didn't talk about. So I don't know who's employed, who's unemployed. But I can tell you, for those that are currently unemployed, it can be a stressful time. All of you guys, when I look at you, I can tell that I'm probably the most mature age-wise in here. You guys look like you're still in your 30s, so we're gonna go with that, right? So, but when you get to a certain age, you start to think, wow, how do I re-enter into the workforce? It's challenging. As a matter of fact, I had a client just 2 weeks ago. She asked me, she said, Ernest, I'm 55. Is that a problem for me getting into the workforce? The short answer is, it can be. It can be. That's the truth. However, that shouldn't be a deterrent for you, because it's always possible. What are you bringing to the table? Because understand this, in business, there's 2 things that companies are looking for to do. What are the 2 things? Make money and save money. And if you can do that, you become a valuable asset to that company, correct? It doesn't matter your age when it comes to making them money or saving them money. So how do we jumpstart our career? So there are three things that I want to point out, that I want to talk about. Creating a goal with an action plan, your attitude, and being holistically balanced. Those are the 3 points. There's so many other things that go into a successful career, but those are the 3 things that I want to talk about today. As an IT project management professional, and I heard project managers in here, what's the one thing that we live by as project managers? What's the one thing that we live by? Our plan. Our project plan, correct? We do nothing without a plan. That's the one thing that we always learn in project management. You gotta create that plan. Same thing with your career. It's not enough to just submit resume after resume after resume. That's not a plan. At least it's not an effective plan. So I want you to go forward thinking, you know what? In my career search, let's put together a plan. And I am a big believer in the SMART goal system. Are you guys familiar with the SMART goals? Okay, I'm seeing some people shake their head. No, that's fine. It's an acronym. SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time-bound. Now, the R can go with relevant as well. So you can play with those. But in trying to find your job or find that successful occupation in your career, what's the one goal that you're looking for? I want a job, right? That's really what you want. However, you should break it down. Again, I want to speak to my project managers. When we set that goal, what do we put in place as well to measure our success? Milestones. We put in milestones. So begin to think of your career as a project. Definition of a project, it has a beginning and an end. Doesn't mean that it's short-lived, just means that it's temporary. That's the definition of a project. Did you hear the word that I said, temporary? The only way you're going to begin to start to look at your career search as being temporary is that you have to get yourself in a position that I'm valuable. I'm an asset. I bring a lot to the table. I will get the job that I want. If you are currently unemployed, it's just temporary. May not feel that way, especially when the first of the month comes around. I know, but it's only temporary. This is a project. If we follow the SMART goal system, and here's an example that I put up. First thing you want to do is be specific about what you're looking for in your career. As an example, I will get 5 new in-person interviews with companies on my list of top 10 companies to work for. So in that first sentence, I did a couple of things. The first thing I did was created a list. What's the list that I created?
Top 10 companies
that you want to work for. What is your dream list? Once again, I said this earlier, it is not enough to just start to post your resume to any job that you want. That you see. Begin to start to strategize. What companies are you interested in working for? The other thing that I say in there, how many interviews do I want to get?
5.
5. So now I put something on me. It's not enough to say I want an interview, I want 5 interviews. Well, why do I want 5 interviews? What's the purpose of your resume? That's exactly what it is. I can tell you every time I get a client that calls me, Ernest, can you do a resume for me? I need a job. I can create you a powerful and effective resume, but the resume does not get you the job. The resume gets you the interview. The interview is where you're going to get the job. And then I say, what kind of interviews? In person. Because there's a great chance you're going to get a phone interview. But when you get in the office, in that interview room, that's when you're able to sell yourself. So I started out by giving you my 3 words for myself: handsome and more handsome, right? When I get an interview, I always feel like you can call the other candidates because this is done. The job is mine. That's the way I feel. It may not be reality, but I can tell you that's how I feel. And that's the way I want you guys to begin to feel. When you're called into an interview, you have to have the mentality, you might as well call the other candidates because this is my job. So I want in-person interviews. See how I'm getting specific? Once again, when you create your goals, they shouldn't be general. Make them specific. Because anyone can, not anyone, but just about anyone can get a phone interview. But can you get in that door? You know, there was a movie called Wall Street. One of my favorite movies. Did anyone see that movie? Gordon Gekko. There's a line in there. Gordon Gekko talks to Buddy and says, you had what it took to get in my office, but do you have what it takes to stay in there? You have what it takes to get in that interview, but do you have what it takes to get that job? Measurable. I will measure my success by the number of face-to-face interviews I get with the companies on my top 10 list. Once again, I'm specific as well because it's not the fact that I'm getting face-to-face interviews, but I'm getting face-to-face interviews with who? The companies that I want to work for. I can get an interview with one that is outside of that list, and that's awesome, that's great. But remember, we're trying to be specific of what we want. We did research on 10 companies that we want to work for a reason. Because these are the companies that we identify with, that their value systems are related to mine. That's a whole nother conversation with regard to value systems and the company. Next thing is attainable. I will increase the number of jobs I apply to that are on my list of the top 10. I will connect with recruiters and managers via social media that are employed by companies on my top 10 list. So when we talk about attainable, now we're talking about what are we going to do to achieve our goals. And again, it's not enough to just randomly upload our resume to job postings. There's nothing strategic about that. Really all that is just a hope and a prayer, right? Pretty much. But when we identify companies that we want to work for, a couple of things happen. One, we're excited. We're passionate about this company. There's something about them that draws us in. So we're going to get connected with them. And it's going to make us want to actually look for jobs inside of that organization. It's going to want to make us want to connect to recruiters and hiring managers. Realistic. As I said, you can use the R interchangeably between realistic and, I'm sorry, what was that? And relevant. Oh, yeah, so you know it. It is realistic to expect that I will be able to work for my chosen company if I commit myself to the process. And we're going to talk about commitment in a moment. But you're able to attain this if you are committed to the process. You have to be committed to it. I heard someone earlier, and I won't point her out, but she's to my right. She said, I'm hoping to be, what was the word that you used earlier?
I want to be optimistic.
And I won't point her out. But you gotta be positive. Sometimes it just gets rough. I get it, it gets hard. But you gotta stay into the game. And the only way you're going to attain your goal is to stay positive, to stay motivated. Realistic. We just talked about realistic. Time. Did we do realistic? Time bound. I will have my 5 interviews in 60 days. Now, what does that do? It makes the goal real, right? makes it real. See, your job search isn't a hobby. It's not a point of submitting 1 or 2 resumes here and there. You know, when I work with clients and I ask, so what have you done so far with your job search? As a matter of fact, how many jobs have you applied to this week? And I applied to 2. And understand what I just said, what I asked. How many have you applied to in this week? I applied to 3. Understand the mentality that you should have. And this is the mentality I want you to have. If you're unemployed here, I don't want to hear, I don't have a job. What's your job? Looking for a job. Looking for a job is your job. And you have to treat it like that. And guess what? You're the boss of that. Not only should you put in 8 hours of it, but you can grant yourself the permission to do overtime. When we put a time on this, it gets real now. It gets real. Because if we're just going to create this goal and say that I want 5 interviews, and we don't say when we're going to have it by, it just becomes a hard. Doesn't mean that I'm going to get these 5. You know, I may not reach that. I may get 3 or 4. However, you put a plan in place. You put a plan in place. Now, what's the purpose of a goal without a plan of action? We can have all the plans in the world, but if we don't put feet to it, it doesn't matter, right? So one of the plans that you need to do is how are you going to conduct your job search? Again, uploading a resume to a site applying for a job is not a plan. And typically, does that just work? Not at all, right? So when we jumpstart our career, one of the things that we want to do is take an assessment of how we're doing our job search. Believe it or not, traditional job searching still works. It does. As a matter of fact, I still love reading the paper, not necessarily on my mobile device or on the computer. One of the best ways, in my opinion, because I know I have some experts in here as well, one of the best ways in a traditional job search is to go to the company. We hide behind our computers so much now that we don't get to know who people are anymore. We don't get to show our personality. If I am a recruiter and you show up at my office, I may not be able to speak to you right then and there, but now what? I know who you are. I got an idea of who you are. I know your name. And more importantly, you've shown me that you want this position. Social media. How many in here use social media? How many in here use social media for job search? Okay, I'm not seeing too many hands. We live in a world of social media. Over 70% of recruiters look for candidates through social media. Over 70%. That's an amazing number, though. LinkedIn. How many people are on LinkedIn? Now, check this question. How many of you guys use LinkedIn? You should be active on LinkedIn. LinkedIn should be your best friend right now. You should be connecting with recruiters, hiring managers, and people who are in the organization and companies that you created that list with. That's who you want to focus on. Headhunters, placement agents, full-time, part-time, or that means do you want to look for a job as a full-time or part-time employee? The state job center, using a career coach or a job coach. These are things that you really now need to begin to think about. How am I going to approach my job search? Put a plan together. In 2010, let me back up. I worked for America Online, which then became AOL, for nearly 15 years. And at some point, I wanted to leave. It was time for me to leave. I had done all that I was supposed to do there, but I didn't leave. Were you raising your hand?
You know, I'm just saying, I hear you now, knowing when it's time.
Right.
Yeah.
But I did not leave. Can you tell me why I didn't leave? Anyone just stay?
Comfortable?
I was so comfortable. So comfortable. And the other part to it was fear. Fear. Now, as a spiritual person, I won't go into my spiritual take and beliefs. However, I will say this. A fourth grader to me said, if you won't move, I will move you forward. I will move you. And I was laid off in 2010. But what did I do? I looked at that as an opportunity to do what I wanted to do. And here I am standing before you doing what I love. What I love. So if for anyone that's in here that is currently not working, I want you to have the mindset that I have the opportunity now to figure out what it is that I want to do. Tom and I were just talking about this just a moment ago. This is an opportunity. Perhaps you don't want to do what you've done for so many years. Take this time as an opportunity to do what it is that you want to do. But my point being is, make a plan. How are you going to go about your job search? Maybe you no longer want to be in the IT field. Maybe you want to go into the healthcare sector. But that's all you know is the IT field. Well, this is a great opportunity to begin to learn. To find out what it takes to be in the healthcare sector. When you're creating your plan, you want to create, when you're jumpstarting your career, you want to create and update your career seeker documents. What are your career seeker documents? Cover letter, resume, thank you letter, endorsement letter, salary history. There's so many other documents that go into your career seeking documents. But this is the time that you want to begin to update those. And let me back up with that. Anytime you have a change in your career, in life, you want to update these documents. But this is a perfect time to begin to do that. You should always look at your resume and tweak it here and there. The one thing about jumpstarting your career with your resume, when you take a look at it, typically what I see, and I'm sure that you guys, since you've been in 40 plus, you guys, your resumes are awesome. But typically what I find is that people put in their resume what their daily duties are. Do you guys have it on your resume, what your duties are in your work experience? See, she's sitting right here now, so I know 40 plus is doing their job. I know it. When you're updating your resume, when you're jumpstarting your career, we want to put in there our accomplishments, our achievements, what values that we've done, the projects that again, two things that companies do. That's all they're concerned about is what? Making money. That's it. There's other parts to it. You know, they care about their employees. They care about the environment. But that's really what it's about, making and saving money. And if you can show that in your resume, as opposed to just saying, this is what I've done on a day-to-day. I know you've done that because you're applying to this. But what have you done? What were your achievements? What were your accomplishments? Because there's only one reason why you're going to get hired. The only reason that you're going to get hired is because you were able to stand out amongst your competition. Just out of curiosity, do you know how many jobs on average, how many candidates on average apply to one job? Tom has already smiled. 20.
300.
Over 100.
1,000.
Tom?
Quite a few. It depends on the job, but yes, can be in the hundreds.
It is on, as he said, it depends on the job. But on average, we're talking about several hundred for one open position. Do you see why just sending your resume to a job posting is not a strategy? And if your resume does not stand out, it's not even going to make it past the first round. Now, let me let you guys in on the secret of recruiters, because I know I have some recruiters in here, and they're probably going to be upset. It's like the magician. They don't want you to tell the secrets. So I know you guys believe that recruiters get your resume and they read it line for line. Because you're special. Why wouldn't they want to read my resume, right? Remember, what are my 3 words? And more handsome. So why would they not want to read my resume?
They want money.
But if I'm 1 out of 200 candidates that are applying to this, and I did not catch that recruiter's attention in the first 7 seconds, on average, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, on average, your resume only gets 7 seconds of eyeball attention. So you have to make your point right away. So when you're jump-starting your career, a good place to start with is this resume. How do you write an effective resume? Begin to list all your achievements, all your accomplishments. What have I done for my past employers? Endorsement letters. Notice that I didn't put up their references, right? It's easy to get a reference. If you can't find 3 friends or a coworker to say something good about you, we got a whole nother section that we need to talk about. Endorsement letters are more powerful than reference letters. Because if I'm endorsing you, I'm putting my name on the line. As a former employer, I'm going to say that John was a great asset to this company. John did A, did B, did C. We would love to hire him back if he ever came back, if he ever decided to come. There's a difference between endorsing someone and giving someone a reference. Totally different. When you leave a job, no matter what the circumstances are, always leave
On good terms.
on good terms. Always. Always leave on good terms. The interview preparation. When you're starting to jumpstart your career, when you want to jumpstart that career, make sure you're prepared for that interview. I like to say there are 3 phases. The pre-interview, the actual interview, and the post-interview. Because the purpose of the interview is what? Get the job. If you're going to jumpstart your career, this is where you want to focus, right? Because that's showtime. That's the moneymaker right there. You know, I had a client just recently. Actually, I've been working with her for a little over a year. Got her resume to a point where she was getting interviews. She was able to describe and articulate her brand. She knew what her market value was, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. But when she got the interview, she never got the job. And I used to always say to her, would you like for me to work with you on your interview? She was just like, no, I got this. Okay. I'd call her up, how did the interview go? Interview went great. Oh, it was awesome, they loved me. Never got the job. Recently, she reached out to me about 2 weeks ago. We did a coaching session. Her interview was not what she thought it was. It was not. Her interview was not what she thought it was. Now, what I do is I record it. We do a mock interview. And you get to see what I see. I'm sorry. No. I thought you were sitting over there. I'm sorry. You get to see what I see. I give you instant feedback, and then I'll give you a written assessment. And when we went through her video, she said, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe that's the way I am in my interviews." It's okay. But the problem now that you know, now it's time to adjust. So when you're jump-starting your career, focus on the interview. The pre-interview is your image. I know we believe that people aren't judgmental. They're going to love me for who I am. But unfortunately, that's not the case. Always represent yourself as a professional. Always dress in a manner that says, I am a professional, I'm going to add value. Even if the environment that you're going to work for is a dress casual environment. As I said, I worked at AOL. It would never be a day that even in the winter here in Washington, D.C., in January, you would not see someone walking around with flip-flops, shorts, and a Hawaiian shirt. That was the culture there. But just because that was the culture didn't mean that that's the way you should come in an interview. Your image is so important. Does anyone remember Andre Agassi's old commercial years ago? What he used to say, his tagline? Image is everything. Image is so important. Another part to that pre-interview. I don't have to say this to you guys, but I'm going to say it anyway. Never, ever be late to an interview. Never. I am not going to hire you if you can't even make it to the interview on time. I don't want to hear that there was traffic or I got lost. What do we do so that doesn't happen? Still in the pre-interview phase, let me tell you what I do. Map it out the night before. And I don't just mean by Waze or Google Maps. Drive it. I mean, literally drive. This should be your plan. Know your route on how you're going to get there. Take a test ride. If this job is that important to you, do everything that you can to make sure you put yourself in position for success. Research the company. As I said, this was kind of not the topic that I was going to talk about, but because I do this, I love it. I called Ken late last night because I was on the website of 40 Plus. I've been on here and I saw that I was speaking today in the topic that I was speaking on. But I wanted to learn more about 40 Plus. Because it's you guys, and this is so important to me, and what I do, it was important enough for me to go and research and do more research. If you want this job and you're going to an interview for this company, it should be important enough to go do research, to learn as much as you can about that company. It's going to come up in the interview. I'm going to jump to the post-interview real quick. I see I got an E on the end of that. Sorry about that. Because I want to stick with the research part. When it's time to ask a question, when the interviewer has opened it up to say, do you have any questions for me? Let me let you know something. Do not ask questions that are easily found on the website. Because to me, as the interviewer, you didn't do enough. You didn't take the time to even just go look at my website. How important is this interview and this job to you that you didn't just do a simple search on something that you could have, the question that you asked was on the front page of my website? The questions that you want to ask in this post-interview when you're jumpstarting your career are things that's going to send a message to the hiring organization that you're going to bring value to them. It's not always about me. Let me let you in another, I'm giving you guys all kind of little secrets.
Good.
Organizations, while they love their employees, they love themselves more. So while we're thinking, how much money am I going to get? How many vacation days do I get? Those aren't the questions that you want to ask at that point in time. The questions that you want to ask is going to convey to them that I am a valuable asset, that I'm concerned about the business of the company. Questions such as, I just saw in the news on CNN or on your website that you are in talks with mergers with company XYZ. How will that impact the company and the position in the department that we're in? There's a difference between that and, yeah, I have a question. How many vacation days do I get? Do you see the difference in those two questions? There's a question back there. Should I save it for the end or do I?
Save it for the end.
Save it for the end. All right. The interview. That's what I call showtime. Understand the resume. I want to let you guys in on this. The resume is all about the company. When an organization puts out a job posting, they're in effect saying, we have a problem. And your resume should speak to that problem and say, I am the solution to your problem. But it's not about me in that resume. It's all about you. I've read the job posting. I see where the problem is. Here's how I can be of value to you, how I can help you. These are the accomplishments and the achievements that I've done in the past to help solve this problem. Your interview, this is where you get to say I walk on water. This is where you get to sell yourself. Understand this. The majority of people who I work with the interview sessions when I coach them have a problem of talking about themselves, about the value that they bring. What were my 3 words? It is okay to talk good about yourself because you only get one shot. You get one shot in this interview. You don't get to call the interviewer back up and say, you know what, I'm feeling a little bit better now. Can we go back to that question that you had earlier? No. No. You get one shot. One shot. Make it count. How do we do that? With a plan. Perhaps you've heard of this, perhaps you haven't. Have you guys know what PAR stories are? PAR is an acronym. Problem, action, result. That's the way I want you to begin to answer all of your questions in the interview. PAR, P-A-R, problem, action, result. When asked a question, I want you to present the problem that you faced in the past. I want you to give the action that you took and the positive result that came from it. Now you're telling that interviewer and that hiring company, not only do you have a problem, but not only can I solve it, but I've done this. It's not enough for me to say that I can do this, but it's a whole new ball game when I can say or give you tangible proof. And I tell you what I always do, and I would suggest you guys begin to do this in your interview. Always, if not asked, begin to always begin your answer in the interview with, let me give you an example. When you go to answer that question, whatever that interview question is, if they don't ask for it, for example, offer it up. Always say, let me give you an example. I can tell you, I got a job once just because I did that. Hiring manager, about a month or 2 after I was hired, came to me and said, Ernest, the reason why I actually hired you was because you were the only candidate that made me feel like you actually had done what we're looking for with your answers. There's a difference between saying that I can do something and giving you proof that I can do something. When you're jumpstarting your career, you gotta plan it out. You start to write down at least 3 scenarios that you faced in the past that you can begin to create horror stories from. Start to practice those. So when you're in an interview, they're just second nature. And the great thing about them is you can talk to them because it's your story. It's your story. Can I say something real quick? I get real passionate. I'm getting behind because I get real passionate about it. So I get real passionate. So I know I need to move on. I see time is on. So the second point is the attitude. Commitment, dedication, and motivation. Commitment and dedication, we use those 2 words interchangeably, but they're different. They're totally different. Have you guys heard the story about the chicken and the egg about to open up a restaurant? You guys know that? Oh, you have?
Been a long time, but.
Been a long time? Well, let me see if I can. So everyone else has not heard it, right? All right, gather around, boys and girls, time for a story. So a pig and a chicken and an egg.
The pig.
Chicken and a pig want to open up a restaurant. And do you know what they want to call it? Bacon and eggs. So the pig is thinking, wow, this is going to be a great opportunity. But the only thing is, I wonder how dedicated is the chicken. He couldn't sleep. So the next day he called up the chicken saying, look, I'm excited about this. I really believe in this. We can make this restaurant work. But I gotta know, are you really dedicated to this? Chicken said, yeah, I believe we can make this work. I'm dedicated. I'm chief egg maker. I'm dedicated to it. But then he stopped and looked at the pig and said, as the head of operations for bacon, are you dedicated to it? Are you committed to it? See, there's a difference between committed and dedicated. The chicken only had to be dedicated. The pig had to be committed. And committed is what? It's giving of yourself. So when you're in your career search, it's not enough to want to just love what you're doing. You have to be committed to it. Remember that if you're not working right now, what is your job? Searching for a job. Your job is your job. You have to be committed to it. Commitment. It's the ability to do something even when you don't feel like doing it. When you don't want to do it. Dedication is the love. When you have love, that's easy. But when you're not feeling well, be it physically, emotionally, mentally, your commitment gets tested. When you're discouraged, how many of you guys know about the jobs report that we get every month that tells us the unemployment rate? There's a section in that report that's called the discouraged workers. Do you guys know about that? The discouraged worker, by definition, is someone who has stopped looking for work because they believe that there are no jobs out there for them. They lost their faith. They don't believe in themselves any longer, which then impacts their commitment to their job search. They still have that dedication to their field, but the commitment to actually now get up and do the job search, I am not going to stand here and tell you that and give you that rah-rah speech that you have to stay focused, you have to stay committed. You know, it gets easier. There's light at the end of the tunnel. All of that is true. But we're human. After a while, life begins to beat us down. But when we are recharged, we get a renewing of our commitment. We have to think about what's motivating us. We all are motivated by something. It may be different for each one of us, but we're motivated by something. Some people are motivated by money. There's nothing wrong with that. Me personally, early on in my career, I was so motivated by money and stature. I worked my way up the management chain in corporate America. And through that time, I didn't raise my kids the way I wanted to. I wasn't involved, at least in the first one. I thought buying this nice home and being able to send my kids to private schools and all this was a great thing, which it is. But as I got older, what became more important to me was my kids. The time that I get to spend with them. So my motivation became not money, not a position, but the ability to be able to work from home and spend more time with my kids, having breakfast with them, taking them to school and from school. That became my motivation. So whatever your motivation is, it's your motivation. Don't be apologetic about it. Don't be embarrassed about it. Whatever it is, that's what it is. Success. I usually around this time, but in the interest of time, I would usually ask, what's the definition of success? But the short answer to it is, it's your definition. No one can define success for you but you. That's your motivation. You have to have the attitude of when you're jump-starting your career, that I got this. I can make this happen. It will happen. But you have to be committed and you have to be dedicated to it. One step that you can take is this right here. Because you're here today, this is one huge step in jumpstarting your career. This motivation piece, I can tell you, motivation is something that will drive you to do anything. Once you find the right motivation, you find the passion, there is nothing you won't do to achieve your goal. Nothing. There are times at night when I don't sleep. Going back to the conversation that Ken and I slept for 1 hour last night. 1 hour. Because I had to read, because I had to change up my presentation. But the only thing that I thought about, seriously, is you guys. You were my motivation. You were my motivation. My thought was, this message today is going to touch someone. I hope that it touches everyone. That all of you guys will walk out of here with something that's tangible that you can implement in your life right now. But if I'm able to do that to one person, I've done it. I've done it. I get so excited about what I do. I love it. And you guys are my motivation. You just have to find what your motivation is when you're jumpstarting your career. And that's the thing about jumpstarting your career. Now you get to reassess your life. You get to think about your value system. What's important to me? As I said before, you may have been in the IT field, now you want to go into the healthcare field. This is a great time to not only jumpstart your career, but now reassess where you are in life, your values, and what motivates you. Real quick, I know I got about 10 minutes. Holistic balance. This is the third piece. As you can see, spiritual, physical, and emotional. Those are three important things when jumpstarting your career. They go hand in hand, and they're so important. The spiritual piece, and when I speak about spiritual piece, I'm talking about the stress that all of us are under. I am a type of person, I'm an introvert. I'm an introvert until it's time for me to start to talk about what I love. If I wasn't talking about this, I would be standing in the corner somewhere, just waiting for this day to be over. But if you want me to get to talk about education, how we can advance in our careers. But when we're under stress, because the bills are due, we're unemployed, I don't know about you guys, but my kids have this nasty habit, and for whatever reason, it irritates me. It seriously irritates me. They want to eat at least 3 times a day, and I don't know how to break them out of that. I don't know how to break them out of that. So guess what? I have to work. I have to work. Ken suggested to me that he gave me the instructions, he gave me this long list of how to get here today. He said, this is where the parking is, this is where we're located, he did, yada, yada, yada. And at the very end, he said, but I would suggest scrap all that, just take the subway.
Just okay.
I was born and raised in Washington, D.C. I know what Washington is like. But I gotta tell you, my stress level was at 10 this morning with all the horn blowing. Oh my goodness. The traffic. Thank you for suggesting that. And on top of all of that, we have family that we have to contend with. We have bills that we have to contend with. There's so much that goes into our stressful day and into our stressful lives, let alone our career search, jumpstarting our career. I want you guys to begin to take note of your stress level. There's so many things that you need to do, but the one thing that's most important is your health and your life. Because guess what, at the end of the day, if you're not here, life still goes on. I know everyone thinks that they're that important. I know when I go, the world stops, but it may not stop when you guys go. So you need to take care of yourselves. You need to take care of yourself. One of the ways you can do it, meditation. I love meditation. Is anyone meditating here? 1 person, 2 people, 3. Oh my goodness. Meditation is a great stress reliever. It is nothing mystical about it. It's nothing difficult about it. You can take up to 5 minutes and you will feel rejuvenated. You will feel like the weight of the world is just off your shoulders. Until your kid comes knocking on their door, asking for that. But there are different techniques and tools to help relieve and alleviate your stress, or at least manage it. I want you guys to begin to start to search ways on how do you reduce your stress. One of the things I love to do, I love to walk. I love to exercise. No matter what the weather's like. As a matter of fact, I was working in the office yesterday and it was pouring down rain. I took a picture and posted it on social media and said, it's a rainy day here in Washington, D.C. Loving life. Guys, but find the beauty in any and everything that you do. Physical. The greatest way that you can reduce stress and help keep you in a positive mood is begin to exercise where you're able. I'm not asking you to become an Olympic athlete. Go out for a walk. If you're working at your desk, stand up. Don't sit for so long. Another thing that's important, and this goes a little bit more into the emotional pieces, be guarded in what we allow into our world. I'm a big believer in energy, positive and negative energy. When you're jump-starting your career, it can be difficult, it can be challenging, it can be stressful. Make sure that you're bringing in positive energy. Do you guys have a favorite motivational speaker outside of me? If not, find one. Me personally, I like Les Brown. You know, if you have music that you love to listen to, find some music that's uplifting, that's upbeat to you guys. There's an old saying, and actually it's an old saying from a Bugs Bunny cartoon, but music soothes you. It can. Doesn't matter what language it is, it'll heal you, no matter where you are, what state you are emotionally.
What relaxes me, listening to blues or jazz on the radio, or if I'm in the mood, really want to know more about what's going on in the opera world, I listen to classical music.
And what's it do?
It relaxes me. And another thing that makes me feel revived is I walk on the weekends. Last weekend I walked 2 miles, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday and Monday. 2 miles each day. That was the best time I see.
Something about exercise. Thank you for sharing. Something about exercise, getting out walking, that brings out that positive energy. When you're jumpstarting your career, it's going to be challenging. You got to find ways to combat that challenge. How am I doing, Tom? Okay. So these 3 things here, spiritual, physical, emotional, you gotta work on those. I want to read this quote to you. In her book, Positivity, Barbara L. Fredrickson, PhD, had this to say about having a positive attitude. The latest scientific evidence tells us that positivity doesn't simply reflect success and health. It can also produce success and health. This means that even after positivity fades, we can find traces of its impact beyond the present pleasant moment. Your positivity has downstream consequences for every trajectory of your life. Positivity spells the difference between whether you languish or flourish. Again, I'm not going to tell you that having a positive attitude and thinking happy thoughts are going to make everything all right, but it's a start. It's a start. When you walked in, Maureen, what was it that you said you hoped that you wanted to be?
I hope you be optimistic.
It's a start. Changing your mindset. When you're jump-starting your career, it's all about beginning a new chapter in your life. And really what that begins with is changing your mindset. Changing your mindset. There is nothing about me that says that I can't do it, that it won't happen. Everything that I do and I go at, you can call it ego, you can call it cockiness, but I have a belief in myself that it's going to happen, and that's what I want you guys to begin to have as you jumpstart your career. Believe that it's going to happen for you. It is going to happen for you. When I go into the interview, remind me, what do I say in my mind that the recruiter should do? Hire me. Call the other candidates. This is a wrap. It's done. I want you guys to have that as you jumpstart your career. It starts with changing your mindset. Three things that you can implement starting today. You don't have to wait to do some of these things. Today, create goals. But we're not just creating any goals. What kind of goals are we creating? SMART goals. SMART goals. Be specific. Measure your progress. Put a plan together. Make sure that it's attainable. Be realistic about it. And one of the most important pieces to the SMART goals is what? Time. Because if it's not time bound, it's just a hobby. You're just doing it. You can create your SMART goals today. Obviously, we want a job, but what do we want specifically? Do we want a part-time job? Do we want a full-time job? Do we want to be able to work from home? Do we want to be able to work telework? Do we want to spend more time with the kids? Do we want to change industries? Be specific in exactly what you want. Is there a specific company that I want to work for? The next thing that you can do at this point in time, the second, is change your attitude. But you know what? This is meant for a whole nother group, because I know that this group is already in the right mindset. But if you weren't in the right mindset, that would be number 2 that you can do right now. Walk away by changing your attitude. Go out with the thought of, I got this. I got this. Because if you don't believe it, guess what? The hiring company isn't. You don't believe in yourself, they're not going to believe. My 3 words. Handsome mornings. Because if I don't believe it, You're not going to believe it. The third thing is you can get holistically balanced right now.
What does it mean to be holistic?
Holistically balanced means the three things that were spiritual, physical, and emotional. Those three things, they have to work in unison. It's not enough to be spiritually healthy, meaning that you're stress-free, if, as you said, you went for a walk the other day for 2 miles. If you're not physically active and you're letting your body just go. It does you no good if you're physically active, but you're not working on the emotional piece because now you're still discouraged. You're still unhappy. These three pieces, spiritual, physical, and emotional, they work in unison. They don't have to work together equally at all times, but the point being is you need to try to work on them at the same time. Did that answer your question?
Now I know what it means to be holistically balanced, because when I really felt positive, I know everything is going my way.
It flows, right?
It flows.
It flows. If nobody tells you today, I love you.
Thank you.
Positive energy. You can do this now. 3 takeaways. 3 immediate things that you can do today that you can implement. I'm going to make you guys real happy right now and let you know that concludes my presentation.